Also, by the way, I don't typically make this type of content. This is something sort of new I'm branching out into. Anyway, let's get on to the video now, shall we? Throughout the vastly accessible usage of the internet, it's become more and more easy to fall susceptible into believing oversimplified, if not biased, information as an actual source for learning historical events, either through top search results or purely due to overwhelming temptations, and social media being no exception, as it falls right into this genre of oversimplifying history. Oversimplified history on its own right has usually been the premier choice for receiving said information regarding history, such as global history, and one such example of this can be seen in YouTube, primarily due to top search results cluttering actual historical channels for heavily simplified soulless slop made purely for the sake of content farm or for similar intentions, like as seen with the following YouTube channels that fall susceptible to the problem deriving from said channels that are being analyzed at hand. So for starters, one such notable channel that's going to be described first is none other than Oversimplified, as this can be most notably within their channel name, as it takes mere seconds to realize that this channel falls susceptible to this form of historical content. The videos in particular to the channel are another primary examples of the dangers in oversimplifying history, as it causes actual historical context such as conflict that involves decades of political, social, and economical factors to be reduced into cartoonish personalities and one-liners, causing a lack of nuances. Additionally, it should be noted throughout this content, narrative bias gradually seeping in becomes a tendency, as the creator, in this case being Oversimplified, must choose which facts to include or exclude, even when done unintentionally, ultimately falling susceptible towards distorting of humor and compression. And a good example of this being seen in his take regarding the causes of World War I. Starting off with his first part, the infamous assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand can be seen portrayed in a rather humorous chain of events that culminate in a light-speed breakdown of the alliance system through misrepresenting and exaggeration. While alliances were a factor, the video leaves out deeper causes like arms race, imperial rivalries, Balkan nationalism, and Austro-Hungarian Empire's internal instability, alongside misrepresenting national flags, which will be discussed in further detail later on in the video, and the then current status of the political tensions during World War I overall. And this level of formatting is not just limited to World War I, as we even see him doing the exact same thing when discussing World War II, primarily with Hitler and the Nazi regime. In presenting World War II leaders like Hitler, Stalin, Churchill, etc. in equally exaggerated comedic styles, there's a risk of viewers seeing them all as delusional buffoons with distinctive motives, losing the moral weight of their actions, although be it rather inhumane. Otherwise, this isn't to say that their actions excuses them for committing a barrage of heinous actions and man-made horrors beyond comprehension. Overall, his follow-up to World War II ends up portraying with a strong focus on Allied military victories and Axis blunders, which results in a reinforcement of the good guys versus bad guys myth. This is further reinforced when considering the heavily undermined man-made horrors and atrocities committed by the Allies' side, more darker actions during the war, like the firebombing of Dresden atomic bombs, internment camps in the US, or the USSR's post-war actions, of which are either underrepresented or lightly brushed past, giving a misleading representation of the Allies while excusing their actions at times. For many viewers, Oversimplified might be their first or only exposure to a topic. If that exposure is reduced to cartoons and jokes, that usually results in false confidence in one's understanding of history, or viewers not seeking out deeper sources to learn more about said topic and or to differentiate between something that treats trivial information as factual. This isn't to say Oversimplified is bad. The creator even has disclaimers saying it's a simplified and humorous take, not a textbook. However, there are other channels that either end up doing a horrendous job at this or simply ignore such disclaimers or mentionings altogether, purely for the sake of content farming and baiting others with misinformation for alternative history slop. And this format of gradually shifting more towards fictitious, nonsensical scenarios is no exception. One primary example of such alternative history can be seen in the channel that goes by the name What If Alt This. The What If Alt This YouTube channel, while popular for its engaging alternative history scenarios and bold geopolitical takes, can serve as a prime example of why oversimplifying history is misleading and potentially harmful. History is a mess, filled with competing interests, shifting alliances, diverse human experiences. Meanwhile, What If Alt This often presents sweeping narratives through a means of X country failed because of Y culture flaw, or Z ideology always leads to said collapse. That ignores the layered socio-economic, political, and environmental factors at play. Oversimplifying like this creates a distorted picture that can feel intuitive but is often historically inaccurate. And a primary reason for why it's predominantly harmful is because it encourages viewers to adapt reductive, even fatalistic views of nations, cultures, or ideologies, fueling stereotypes and reinforcing biased worldviews. In addition, many videos on the channel imply that certain outcomes were inevitable or that specific civilizations were destined to rise or fall due to fixed traits. This kind of historical determinism strips people of agency and removes contexts like colonialization, resource access, or contingency, especially when What If Alt This often cherry-picks facts to give an air of authority, but many claims are made without proper citation or are based on outdated and/or fringe theories. This is evidently harmful because it misleads viewers into thinking they're getting a comprehensive scholarly analysis when they're really getting an opinion piece dressed as history. Because the context is stylized and confidently delivered, it appeals to people looking for clear answers or ideological validation. This can lead to echo chambers where nuances debate is replaced by memeified, oversimplified takes. In short, What If Alt This shows how presenting history as simple, moralistic, and deterministic might be entertaining, but it's also intellectually dangerous as it turns history into a blunt tool for ideology instead of a lens to understand the past in all its complexity. And that's the adherent problem shown with channels like What If Alt This. For the second criteria, I'd like to analyze how sites like the Wiki fandom, Wikipedia, Reddit, and some notable YouTube thumbnails all negatively affect search results when browsing for historical events within search engines like that of Google, for a few key reasons. The first reason being that algorithmic dominance and SEO favoritism can cause search engines like Google to heavily favor high authority, high traffic domains, with sites like Wikipedia dominating results due to their domain authority, Wiki fandom ranks because they're keyword heavy and loaded with internal links, Reddit threads ranking well because of user engagement such as upvotes and comments, YouTube thumbnails and titles can rank high if the video gets traffic and click-throughs. And the problem being with this is that these platforms game the algorithm, not maliciously but structurally. Their presence surpasses primary sources or lesser known expert resources. Second key reason being that blurring fiction and history partially with Wiki fandom and YouTube. Wiki fandom most often mixes fictional timelines with real-world historical terminology, and such examples are evident when searching for Battle of Thermopylae, in which might show results from 300 or fictional timelines instead of academic or primary sources. YouTube thumbnails often use clickbait imagery such as top 5 wars you didn't know about, with a flaming background and stylized soldiers depicting exaggerating scenes, or other often misleading thumbnails and titles like Why Hitler Was Secretly a Time Traveler. These videos might reference myths, conspiracies, or dramatize accounts, which is a given when these sources present fictionalized, sensationalized, or gamified history as real, which is misleading for casual researchers and students. Third key reason being user-generated and unvetted content. Reddit threads often provide anecdotal or speculative responses with no citations. Wikipedia, while better moderated, can still reflect biases, editor wars, and vandalism, especially for controversial or obscure events such as the existence of the Rhine Confederation, Austria-Hungary, the Trojan Horse, and most likely many more. This can result in unvetted information potentially lacking scholarly rigor and can promote nationalistic bias, oversimplification, and internet myths and memes. Additionally, Google struggles with search intent disambiguation in these cases, and furthermore, this can be seen when searching Fall of Rome causes, which might bring up results like Reddit r/AskHistorian thread, a Wikipedia section that oversimplifies, or a YouTube video comparing it to Fallout or modern America. The overall effect on historical research may cause such scenarios like legitimate historical scholarships being buried, conspiracy theories and dramatized history spread more easily, young students in casual browser develop skewed understandings, Google's autocomplete and related searchers start reflecting popular, not accurate content. For the final criteria, I'll be analyzing how oversimplification can cause misrepresented flags to create widespread misinformation as a direct result of said flags that will be listed as shown here. Firstly, in row 1, Austro-Hungarian Empire flag, otherwise known as the Habsburg flag, and alongside the heavily misrepresented merchant variant flag, will be the first on the list of misrepresented flags. On the left-hand side, we see the depiction of the correct flag with the Habsburg monarchy flag, black, yellow, horizontal bicolor, represents the House of Habsburg, under which Austro-Hungarian Empire ruled. This was the imperial banner and the symbol of the ruling dynasty, which would be carried onwards following the double ruling monarchy known as the Austria-Hungary Empire. Additionally, we see this clearly being evident as shown by propaganda/media during its existence, as shown by these few images, and through various Wikipedia edits made to correct the past misrepresented flag. And on the right, we see the infamously misrepresented flag, often seen as the Austrian-Hungary flag. This is actually a civil or merchant flag, combining Austrian and Hungary heraldry, used for specific states or civilian applications, but not the imperial or military flag. It should be noted that a merchant flag can be considered an official flag in some circumstances. However, unfortunately, this is not the case, and by definition, a merchant flag is a flag flown by civilian non-military vessels to denote their national identity, and in this case, we see this being used to heavily misrepresent the double ruling monarchy. Most Google and Wikipedia image searches return this hybrid civil flag as the flag or of Austria-Hungary, which erases the monarchy's core dynastic identity, aka the Habsburgs, and simplifies a dualistic empire into a single flat symbol being misused time and time again. Secondly, in row 2, the Confederate States flag, and alongside the heavily misrepresented Novorossiya-inspired flag, or in other words, the Army of Tennessee, which will be the second on the list of misrepresented flags. As shown by the flag on the left, we see the correct variation being one of the national flags, the blood-stained banner variant, representing the governmental symbol of the Confederacy. And on the right, we see the misrepresented flag, which is the widely known battle flag of the Confederate Army, not the national flag. Gained popularity through lost cause mythology and later pop culture, symbolism, and a general means of oversimplifying for misrepresentation's sake. It should also be noted that the actual battle flag variant displayed on the left side is evidently the official military flag for the then Confederate States of America, as shown by its depiction during the American Civil War, and I also highlighted to make it more obvious. Otherwise, the impact for searches of Confederate flag nearly always return this version, distorting the reality of the Confederacy's official state symbols. It also shifts focus from governance to militaristic and racial connotations, especially in politicalized media. The third one being mentioned in row 3 is of South Sudan's flag, and alongside its misrepresented flag, which will be the third one on the list of misrepresented flags. As shown by the left-hand side, we see the actual flag of South Sudan, adopted upon independence in 2011. Blue triangle with a gold star and accurate stripe proportions. And on the right, we see the misrepresented flag that's commonly in emoji packs or stylized graphics, but often inaccurate in shape, shades, or proportion, and/or all of the above. Sometimes missing the triangle depth or has inaccurate stripe order or even darker shades of color that are evidently distinct from the actual official flag. The official flag itself can also be seen depicted with its light shades of color and correct proportions, as shown by the following screenshots depicting the flag in its correct representation. and another that shows more information on the official national flag of South Sudan in further detail by the Wikipedia. Otherwise, the impact of this can result in search engines and graphic repositories like EmojiDB or stock image sites often hosting wrong versions or variations of this flag. This is especially harmful for new nations whose global image is still forming, like that of Sudan, as they get inaccurately represented in international media. The fourth row will be the Vatican City, and alongside the commonly misrepresented flag that easily blends in at times, being rather hard to differentiate between the officially recognized flag, which will be the fourth one on the list of misrepresented flags. The left-hand side correctly represents the Papal States, a sovereign territory ruled by the Pope prior to 1870, with different proportions and context from the Vatican flag. The right-hand side misrepresenting the modern Vatican flag, which was established in 1929 with the Lateran Treaty, often retroactively used for pre-1870 territories, and is oftenly misused retroactively to represent the Papal States. We can also find accurate depictions of the Vatican flag as shown here, in which shows the correct depictions of the flag, although be it minor in comparison to the previous ones mentioned. Additionally, this is also depicted by its coat of arms as shown here, and alongside some more concrete evidence surrounding its misrepresentation and how it's supposed to actually look. Furthermore, this shows how it is misrepresented primarily because this Vatican flag is retroactively appealed to contexts like the Papal States originating in the years 754 to 1870, even though it didn't exist yet. This anachronism flattens historical nuance. The Papal States had no universally accepted flag and used many variants. Search results, however, prioritize the official modern version, misattributing it to the past, and it doesn't help when the incorrect flag has been used in some official functions like in that one UN photo, despite what the law supposedly dictates. The last row will be about the Rhine Confederation and its speculative flags, more commonly used to represent the Confederation as one sole entity in an oversimplified manner, which will be the last one on the list of misrepresented flags. On the left-hand side, one speculative attempt at visualizing a Confederation of the Rhine flag, green neon or stylized design, a fictional or speculative flag often seen in alternative history media or strategy games, in which would later be confirmed to have been proven false on accounts of it being nothing more than modern-day recreations for what the flag would have been like. On the right-hand side, we see another fan-made or fictionalized version possibly based on imagined Napoleonic aesthetics, another modern creation often used for placeholder visuals in educational content or infographics, and of which is also stated to be deemed as rather fictitious by none other than the Wikipedia themselves, and because of the fact that the flag was made recently by the same online user who created the flag depicted on the left. This is further evident when the Confederation was made up of multiple provinces under French control during its initial existence, making it much more difficult to pinpoint an official flag, such as the given examples of this problematic mess being proven to either be a recreation placeholder as mentioned earlier, or being proven as purely fictitious. The Confederation of the Rhine never truly had a unifying flag, and all flags in circulation today are fan-made or speculative since there was no official design. Instead, only member state flags and Napoleon's French Empire's symbol were in use, leading to a rise in visually appealing or popular versions that dominate search results and are incorrectly treated as real, further amplified by sites like Wikifandom, game mods, and YouTube videos without disclaimers, and these designs often derive from game assets, alternate history communities, or inaccurate educational content, outranking academic citations in search engines due to their frequent sharing in the process. And this is how top search engines amplify these misrepresentations. Top search results fuel misinformation by causing search engines to have the tendency of favoring fast-loading SVGs or PNGs, popularity matrix such as CTR, backlinks, or dwell time. Historically accurate flags, however, may be scanned from books, which will be slower to load, or hosted on niche academic domains, which are low SEO. This means that stylized or simplified versions dominate the image results. And in this case, flags used more often in high-traffic websites or click-heavy content such as memes, thumbnails, or infographics can get boosted even if they're wrong. We can also see this with Wikipedia's simplicity bias, such as when Wikipedia chooses one representative image per topic, usually the most visually familiar. This is then scrapped by Google's knowledge graph, giving it the illusion of being official, despite better alternatives being available in source materials. YouTube and Reddit amplifications also contribute to this, as thumbnails in videos often use the most stylized iconic flag, regardless of the historical context. Reddit posts discussing cool flags often sourced from fan sites or alternative history concepts, which get upvotes for aesthetics or narrative appeal, not factual bias. Game influence like Hearts of Iron 4 or Victoria 3 are another contributing example, as these games invent unified flags where none existed for gameplay clarity. Game screenshots are indexed and shared, leaking fictional flags into historical searches, or with these versions often dominating Google results due to mass popularity and image ruse. Together, these forces contribute to a flattened view of the past, where the messy, contradictory, or nuanced reality of empires, republics, and transitional states is compressed into one misleading source, made popular not by historians but by SEO user likes and click-through rates, and alongside top search results dominated by outdated or oversimplified takes that do more harm than good in the long run, which can also be seen in sites like that of YouTube, especially for those wanting to search up historical context. Ultimately, the key takeaway from this is that historical misrepresentation on the web isn't just a matter of outdated textbooks. It's a symptom of algorithm-driven culture, where accessibility often wins over accuracy. To counter this, more context-aware platforms, disclaimers in visual media, and informed curation in educational content are essential to restore a more truthful layer of understanding history overall.